Hello everyone, Aaron Maui here. This is my first attempt at a video tutorial. I hope it goes well. What I want to show you tonight is how you can use event control channels within the Falcon Player to trigger events that you have loaded onto your Falcon Player system. Those events are actually triggered by executing and running a sequence on that Falcon Player. I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing you want to do is figure out which events you would like to trigger from within that sequence. So go to the Events tab. I have a number of them set up here. For the purpose of this demonstration, what we're going to do is trigger event GPIO1 low and GPIO1 high. That happens to drive a relay that I have set up on this particular Pi to turn on some lighting. But you can really use it to drive any event that you've got set up on your system. The next thing we want to do is note the ID, the event ID, for those particular events that we want to launch. In this case, it's event 1/1 and 1/3. That'll be important later when we are using our sequencer to tell the Falcon Player which events we're trying to trigger. The next thing we want to do is figure out which channels we would like to use as our control channels. Now these channels, which are depicted here, I happen to have chosen channels 151 and 152 for my system. No particular reason other than they happen to be free channels in my system, not consumed by other lights. And these are just channels that are standard like any other channel in your system, whether that's an AC channel you're using to drive a string of AC lights, or whether it's an RGB channel that you're using to drive the red or the green or the blue input to an RGB device. Again, these channels here are really no different than any other channel in your system. So again, I've chosen 151 and 152, and you'll see that come into play here in a little bit as well. Once you've figured out which events and which channels you're going to use, you'll go to your sequence editor, and I happen to use xLights 4.3.02 for this demonstration, but really anything that can provide an output, a DMX channel output to Falcon Player should work just fine. So I'm going to go to xLights, and I am going to go to my Layout tab and show you how I've done that. So like I said, I have channels 151 and 152 identified as my major and minor event control channels. In order to use those channels, they have to be part of a model in xLights. I have a number of different models set up. Some of them are my standard models, like my Megatree, my 360 Megatree. One is a test matrix that I built the other day as I was doing some testing with a set of P10s. My control channels I actually have down near the bottom, and I precede them with a Z underscore. One, it helps me remember what it is, but the other thing is that it puts it at the bottom of the list so that I don't have to scroll past it to get to my regular models. So it makes it easy to get to. So the control channel I'm using in this example, I have named Z Control RGB. I'll show you what that one looks like. I've set up a single line, an RGB node type. You can't select any of the single color types because the DMX effect that we're going to use within xLights to launch these particular events only works with RGB nodes. So that's why I've selected RGB. I've said one string and one node. So effectively I have one pixel defined here, and that will be my control RGB node. I've set up my start channel as 151. Recall that I said my major event control channel is 151 and my minor is 152. This RGB node uses 3 channels, as you know, starting at 151 as I've defined, includes channel 151, 152, and then 153. Channel 151 and 152 we will use. Channel 153 will just be unused for our purposes here. So I've got my model set up. So I say OK. Click OK again. Go into my sequencer. I'm going to create a new sequence to show you how to add this control channel to any sequence. I'm just going to say an animation sequence. I'll just use the 50 millisecond timing. I don't have any data to import, so I'm just going to skip this. And I'm going to create a timing grid at 100 milliseconds. Say OK. Say done. Delete this new timing out. That's not the one I created. Here's the one I created. I'm zoom in a little bit. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my control channel model, this Z control RGB, to my sequence. I've done that. So now I've got my control channels identified in here. Now in order to execute the events that I was talking about, recall I have event 1.1 and 1.3. What Falcon Player looks for in channels 151 and 152 to determine which events to trigger is a multiplier of 10 times the numbers shown here in this ID column. So what it will look for to determine when it is supposed to launch GPIO1 low is the number 10 coming across in channel 151 and the number 10 coming across in channel 152. To launch GPIO1 high, it will look for a 10 in 151 and a 30 in 152. And I'll show you how to set that up. So let's say I want to launch GPIO1 low at 1 second. I take my DMX effect, I drop it at the 1 second mark. I'm going to take this effect settings dialog box and pull that out over here so you can see it a little better. And I'm going to adjust channels 1 and channel 2 within that effect. Recall, Z control RGB starts with channel 151. That's channel 1. Channel 152 is equivalent to channel 2 in this dialog. Now again, in order to launch that first event, I'm going to set these values to 10, 10. Now this effect's updated. I always like to click the update button just to be sure. And so now I have data that I have just placed into my control channels, which when the Falcon Player sees that, will execute and trigger event number 1/1. What I'm going to do is at the end of this sequence, execute the other one that we were talking about. So I'll drop another DMX effect at 29 seconds. Here, again, my major channel value is set to 10 because I'm still on major event 1. Now I'm on minor event 30, though. I'm sorry, minor event 3, so I have to set the value to 30. Then I hit update, and I'm finished. Now, at 1 second, Falcon Player will execute GPIO1 low, and at 29 seconds, again if you look here, it's 10:10. At 29 seconds, it will execute. See, it's set to 10:30. So it will execute 1/3. Now all I have to do is save this. I'm just going to call this test demo. And save it. I'm going to go out to my Falcon Player file manager and upload my files. We called it test demo. We'll load the FSEQ file. It's sending that out to my Falcon Player system now. And once it's out there, I can launch that sequence file in exactly the same way I launch any of my other sequence files. I can put it in a playlist and then schedule that playlist. I can just go to my status page and run that playlist from here. I can go to my display testing page and choose the sequence here. So again, once I have the FSEQ file loaded out there, I can run it just like any other sequence file. And in addition to doing whatever else is part of that sequence, you could have other lighting events in there like you would normally with a show. It will also trigger those events that I have identified and that I spoke about early in this video and a few times throughout. Hope this is useful to everyone. I don't know what's next, but I'll probably be posting some additional video content here as I go through and learn how to set some of this stuff up myself. Thanks to everybody who's been so awesome in posting content to the Falcon Christmas forum. I've learned an awful lot. This is kind of my way of paying back for all the help I've been given. Have a good night.